Hi, I'm Jesse Hilbert.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hubbard.
And welcome
to Arthropod
Adventures.
Episode 2.
Season 2.
Season 2, episode
15.
15.
The Fake Without a Tail.
The fake without a tail.
Charlie, today's arthropod can be found under leaf litter and occasionally even in your house. You might be fearful that you've stumbled upon a much more dangerous creature, but this one is a fake. What are we going to say? Can...
Guess what
Today's episode brings us to the world of the pseudoscorpion.
Without the tail.
Yeah, it doesn't. We'll get to that in a minute, but you're right. It doesn't have a tail, and it's not. It is an arachnid, though.
Yeah, it is arachnid, except it's just.
It's not a true scorpion.
It's not as true as scorpion.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yep.
Now, Charlie, I didn't know this animal even existed until not too long ago when I stumbled upon one of them under a table. I initially thought I had found...
That's cool.
It was cool.
It actually really was cool.
It really was cool. And you know what? I thought it was a scorpion, even though we were in Connecticut. I was like, I didn't know we had that. Yeah, it was crazy, right?
Yeah, like I just found.
Yeah.
We also found a cool arthropod.
What arthropod?
Earwig.
We saw an earwig, a European earwig.
On the front steps.
Yeah. So, Charlie.
Yes.
And I had so many questions that raced through my head about this pseudoscorpion because I knew we didn't have scorpions here.
Me either.
You either? Now, after I researched it a little bit, and this is before Arthropod Adventures, I found out that it was a pseudoscorpion, which, as its name suggests, is a fake scorpion because the word pseudo comes from Greek and it means false.
False.
Yeah.
And you also need to check out your Instagram.
We should always check out our Instagram, arthropod_adventures_podcast. Good. Now.
So you need to find some cool arthropods and...
Yeah. Send us some cool arthropod pictures.
If you find some, just text them up on Instagram.
Yeah, text them up on Instagram. All right, Charlie. Now, the pseudoscorpion is an arachnid, and therefore it is related to scorpions. But that's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah. But it does have many of the same characteristics that we associate with scorpions.
It also really does listen.
It really listens? I mean, they might listen pretty well. I don't know.
I don't know.
But it...
Not the...
You are not a true bug. That they belong to the order Hemiptera. And the scorpion does not because it's not an insect.
So...
And this pseudoscorpion lacks the overall arching tail that makes the scorpion so famous. But we'll get to that. Now, researching its genus and species proved to be a little challenging. But after I had finished writing the entire episode, I was able to find what I thought to be the most common one in homes, and its scientific name is Chalifer cancrodes. Yeah, that's a hard one. I definitely said that one wrong. And their genus, Chalifer, comes from...
You can also find them under rocks if you have a bunch of rocks.
Yeah. And the Chalifer comes from Latin and means claws or to bear claws.
If you claws are if you have sharp things.
Mm-hmm. And its species, Cancroides, comes from the Latin word cancer, meaning crabs, and the suffix oides, meaning resembling. So roughly it's like a species that kind of looks like a crab. And it's kind of got claws like a crab or a scorpion.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It could. It also could.
Yeah. And I was able to find some interesting historical references for this creature. The first one dates back to Aristotle, who described seeing them amongst his books. And Robert Hooke, who is noted as being one of the first people to look at a living thing under a microscope.
Under a microscope?
Yeah, and he called these things land crabs, even though they weren't really land crabs.
I don't know why they were.
And some of those things happened thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Like a very long time.
Very long time ago. So, Char, I am finding the taxonomy more and more fascinating, as it's amazing to see how they can change and evolve over time or as new observations are made. This species was one of two described by our dear old friend, Linnaeus. In the mid-18th century, both of these pseudoscorpions were initially described as mites by Linnaeus, who then moved them to the genus Phalangium, which contains the daddy long legs that we love so much. It was then moved to the Scorpio genus by Johann Fabricius, which we've talked about before, a decade later. It would eventually find its home in the genus Califer, which had first been discovered back in 1762. Now, Charlie, like other arachnids, their bodies are divided into two sections. You ready, Char? The cephalothorax. Cephalothorax. Good. And the abdomen. The cephalothorax is covered with a carapace, which acts like a shield. And this part of the house also holds the chelicerae. Can you say chelicerae?
Chelicerae.
So, Charlie, the chelicerae, which are the mouth part of the creature, and they use it to nom 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 nom. What's that? Eat? Yeah. And the pedipalps, which are the long, extended claws that protrude out like true scorpions, and 4 pairs of walking legs. The total body resembles a teardrop in shape and can range in colors from yellow to brown. They're very small, Charlie. Did you know that?
No.
You didn't? And their total length is usually less than 1/4 of an inch. Now, do you want to know something interesting?
What?
I was recently listening to another podcast called the New Species Podcast with Zoe, and she had a scientist on there talking about pseudoscorpions, and they recently found they had talked about describing the largest pseudoscorpion and one of the smallest pseudoscorpions, and tell people they should go listen to New Species Podcast.
You can go listen to New Species Podcast.
Because it's amazing, and Zoe does a great job.
And Zoe also actually does.
She actually does do a great job, you're right. So, Charlie, the pseudoscorpions do contain venom, which can be found within their venom glands, found in their pedipalps. Those are like, as I heard on New Species, like the finger-like things at the end. Kind of like the claw part.
And they also tickle.
I mean, I imagine they might tickle a little bit. Now, they use these to subdue their prey, but this venom is really not going to hurt us.
Except it hurts some other people.
It will hurt some arthropods, yes. And they usually prey upon small arthropods such as ants and mites. And can I just tell you the craziest thing that I learned on New Species? Sometimes the pseudoscorpions will hitch a ride on a fly. So it's like that they're on an airplane. How cuckoo bananas is that? Yeah. It's wild, right?
Yeah.
Now, this arthropod can live upwards of 3 years. The mating ritual of the pseudoscorpion is a fascinating one. The male uses his spinneret to create a silken package that contains his sperm, and he will then grab onto the female and dance with her. The dance begins vibrating his body and showing off his claws. He then moves around until the female has traveled over the package that he had placed down. This process can take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. The female will produce her eggs, which range between 12 and 24, and carry them around in a silken pouch for about 3 weeks. Once hatched, they will stay with their mother for a short time, often hitching a ride on top of her, like a super piggyback ride. The pseudoscorpions will go through 3 stages or molts before they reach adulthood. What?
Like put over like a hood.
It's not like a hood. And this whole process is temperature dependent and can take months to complete. Now, Charlie, I've been wanting to find more obscure arthropods like this one, and it fits the bill perfectly. There are over 3,000 described species and can be found all over the world, from tropical regions even all the way up to Canada. They have a pretty rich history, with the oldest known pseudoscorpion dating back to 383 million years ago. Isn't that a long time?
Yes.
This distant relative of our featured arthropod contains all the traits of the current pseudoscorpion, just in a simpler form. They are not seen again in the fossil records until the Cretaceous period, found preserved in amber. So, the next time you stumble upon this false scorpion, fear not, Charlie, for it cannot hurt you, and I encourage you to get a close look at those pedipalps, and just appreciate the fact that it has not changed much for the last several hundred years. Now, Charlie, we should also tell people to check out Dead Bird Eco-Wear Company, because they make amazing clothing that's eco-friendly, which means it's made sustainably and with a lot of amazing fabrics like hemp. They're a veteran-owned company. We want to support our amazing veterans. We say thank you.
Thank you.
And you can find them at deadbirdco.com. That's DEADBYRDCO.com. And if they use the special code, Charlie, arthropod_adventures_podcast, they will get 25% off.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Say thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have an arthropod you would love to hear about, want to tell us what you think about the show, or found a mistake, send us an email at arthropodadventurespodcast@gmail.com. Always check out the show notes, right? And always check out our Instagram, arthropod_adventures_podcast. And what do we always say?
Never stop learning and ever show your journal.
You're funny. Thank you for listening. Stay inquisitive and never stop learning. I came up with a new one we're going to start saying. We got to tell people to be an arthropod advocate. Can you tell them?
Be an arthropod advocate.
Not babicate. Advocate.
Advocate.
Advocate means you like to take care of arthropods.
Yes.
So, your random fact for today is that there's a species of tiger beetle that are producing sounds to sound like other similar moths, and that way bats don't want to eat them. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.